All right, so for lesson 2, now that we've learned how to factor out different expressions, we are going to talk about factoring simple trinomials to be specific. So whenever we look at this, it's anything that this should say ax squared plus bx plus c. So a simple trinomial is always going to be an expression with x to the power of 2 with a coefficient in front of it, x to the power of 1 with a coefficient in front of it, and then just a coefficient at the end. So when we take a look at this, there's a specific way that we can expand them out, and we are going to learn how to do that today. So the first thing that we're going to look at is just multiplying binomials. So remember, when we do this, we've been doing it for a few units now. I'm going to do x to the power of, or x plus 5 times x minus 2. First thing I'm going to do is take the x and multiply it through, and this is going to give me x squared minus 2x. And then I have to multiply through my second term. So I will get positive 5x minus 10. Then if I simplify this down, I have a like term here and here. So I will get x squared negative 2x plus 5x is going to give me positive 3x minus 10. And that is my expanded form of that algebraic expression. For this one, I'm just going to write it down here so I have a little bit more space. Same exact thing. I'm going to do x times x is x squared. X times negative 3 is going to give me negative 3x. Negative 3 times x is going to give me negative 3x. And negative 3 times negative 3 is going to give me positive 9. I can then combine my like terms and that gives me x to the power of 2 minus 6x plus 9. All right, so when we're taking a look at a simple trinomial, it has the expression of x squared plus bx plus c. And this is always going to be where this should say a, b, and c are constants. When trying to factor a simple trinomial, we need to find two numbers that these are going to be two numbers that multiply to equal c and add to equal b. So when we do this, a is always going to be equal to 1. So if I take a look here and I write it out, the factored form of that is going to be a bracket x plus r and x plus s. And this is always going to be the case when r and s add up to b and r times s equals c. So when we take a look, we're going to factor these polynomials using that form. So when I take a look, I need numbers that are going to add to b. So they have to add to equal 5 and multiply to equal 4. So if I take a look at this, I could say 5, would 4 and 1 work? 4 plus 1 equals 5. 4 times 1 equals 4. That one does actually work. So that means I get x plus 5 and x plus 1. That 5 is supposed to be a 4. Awesome. And then if I take a look here, I need two numbers that add to equal 3 and that negative 3 and that multiply to equal negative 10. So when I take a look here, I know numbers that could multiply by 10, so we'll just do different factors of 10. I could get 10 times 1, 5 times 2, and those are about my only options. I know that one of these values has to be negative. It doesn't matter which one, but they have to be negative because they have to multiply to equal a negative number. And the only way to multiply to equal a negative number is to have a negative and a negative and a positive. So if I take a look here, if I do say negative 10 plus 1, that would give me -9, so that wouldn't work. If I did 10 plus -1, that would just give me 9, so that one does not work for addition. So we know that one can be crossed off. If I did -5 plus 2, that gives me -3, and that works. So I know that I will get x plus 5 times x, so that should be -5 plus 2. If I take a look at my next one, I have -6 and +8. So they have to add to a negative and they have to divide to a positive. So, or sorry, multiply to a positive. So I know that something plus something must equal -6, and something times something must equal +8. So if I do that, I'm going to look at the factors of 8. I could do 8 times 1, 2 times 4, can't times 3 by anything, so those are my only two options. So I know in this case, to get a negative number, one of them has to be negative. So I know that one of them has to be negative. But to multiply to a positive number, that would mean both have to be negative. So if I have -4, -2, or -8 and -1. -8 plus -1 gives me -9. -4 plus -2 is going to give me -6. So that means my factored form is x minus 4 times x minus 2. Okay, so now we are going to factor each of the polynomials below. So when I take a look at this first one, I see that I don't have an x value, so that would be 0x. So I'm just going to rewrite that as x squared plus 0x minus 64 to start off with, just to put it into an expression that we know. So in this case, I need two numbers that add together to give me 0, and they have to multiply together to give me -64. So when I take a look at that, if they have to add together to give me 0, I know that one is going to be positive and one is going to be negative, and they're going to be the same value. So if I take a look, I know that a times a has to equal -64, which means one has to be negative. That's going to give me a squared is equal to 64, the square root of a squared, and the square root of 64. That's going to give me, I know that 8 times 8 gives me 64. So that means that -8 times 8 is going to give me -64, and -8 plus 8 is going to give me 0, and that works out. So that means the factored form is x minus 8 times x plus 8. We are going to talk about this one specifically in the next unit because this does have its own special type of name. So when we take a look here, I have x squared plus 8x plus 15. So I know that I need two numbers that add together to give me +8, and they have to multiply together to give me 15. So if I take a look at the factors of 15, I have 5 times 3, 15 times 1, and that's about it. So I know that one of these two has to add together then to give me 8. So if I do 5 plus 3, awesome, that gives me 8. So we know it's that one. 5 times 3 gives me 15. Both of these have to be positive to give me a +8 and a +15. So that means that my factored form is x plus 5 times x plus 3. If I take a look at this one down here, I have +4 and -21. So I know that I need, sorry, to that. I need two numbers that add together to give me 4 and that multiply together to give me negative 21. In this case, I know one of them has to be negative because of that negative sign. So here, if I look at the factors of 21, I would get 7 times 3. It's not divisible by 4. 21 and 1. 21 and 1 added or subtracted together is not going to give me 4. But if I look, 7 minus 3 does give me 4. So 7 times negative 3 also gives me 21. So that means I have x plus 7 times x minus 3. If I take a look at the next one, they have to add together to equal negative 11 and multiply together to equal 30. So if I take a look at the factors of 30, I could get 30 times 1. I could get 10 times 3. I could get 15 times 2. 30 is not divisible by 4 evenly. 30 is divisible by 5, so 6 times 5. 30 is not divisible by 7. So those are the factors that we have to work with. So I know that if this here is a negative number, most likely they are both going to be negative. If I also need to get a positive number here. So if I take a look, 30 plus 1 is never going to equal negative 11. 10 plus 3 is never going to equal negative 11. 15 and 2 will never make negative 11, but 6 and 5 will. The only way to get negative 11 is negative 6 minus 5. And if I multiply negative 6 times negative 5, I also get 30. So that means that my factored form is x minus 6 and x plus 5. Awesome. So that's everything for this lesson.